get candidates and voters together so that we can, so that you can learn about it, figure out who to vote for, so we can be really excited for the party's nominee come next year. So by way of a brief introduction for Governor Jindal, Bobby was born and raised in Baton Rouge. He attended Brown University.
Some Bayless just came on.
Degrees in biology and public policy, and I think we're going to be a doctor. Bobby went on to study at Oxford, and as a Rhodes Scholar, which is a big deal, I don't know what that is, graduated in 1994 with a master's degree in literature and a concentration in healthcare policy. That's kind of a strange mix, I think. Immediately following his graduation from Oxford, he began working at a strategic consulting firm, McKinsey & Company. In 1996, when he was just 24, Louisiana Governor Mike Foster asked Bobby to serve as head of the Louisiana Department of Health and Hospitals. Jindal served the mounting deficit in Louisiana's Medicaid program with surplus, rescuing from bankruptcy. In 1998, Jindal was tapped as executive director of the National Bipartisan Commission on the Future of Medicare, and was later appointed to be the assistant secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services. He was elected to Congress in 2004, where he served 2 terms. Jindal's first order of business as governor was to implement comprehensive ethics reform, which Louisiana desperately needed. That resulted in some of the toughest ethics laws in the nation. His administration also took on education reform and implemented one of the nation's largest school choice systems. That also was a big deal. And of course, you can read a lot of other things on Governor Jindal's website, but the one thing that stuck out to me as I looked over his website to see what he had done is that according to the National Association of State Budget Directors and data compiled by the Cato Institute, while Governor Jindal was governor of Louisiana, he is the only governor out of all the governors currently running to actually decrease state spending. And he was the only one to have an average decrease in the tax burden during his tenure. So without further words from me, welcome Louisiana Governor.
Thank you all very much. Thank you for that kind introduction. Thank you for your work on behalf of the party. Let's give another round of applause for all of us. Thank you all for coming out on a Sunday afternoon. I know there are a lot of places you can be. Some folks, we've been here since this morning. I thank you for spending the entire day with us. I really appreciate you spending so much time with this. Let me tell you what I want to do. I want to talk to you for about 15, 20 minutes about the challenges we face as a country. And when I'm done, I look forward to taking your questions on anything and everything. It doesn't have to be anything I've said. And then after that, I'll be happy to visit with folks one-on-one as well. If folks may want to take a picture, or if they have a question or comment, one-on-one, they can fly it. Let me start then with what I think is the most important issue facing us as a country. The reality is that President Obama and the left are doing everything they can to change the very idea and definition of America. Now, what do I mean by that? $18 trillion in debt is bad. An EPA trying to regulate the waters in your backyard is bad. Obamacare putting bureaucrats between doctors and their patients is bad. But what's even worse than all of that is that every time the president speaks, you look at his rhetoric, you look at his policy, it's all about changing the idea of America. It's all about redistribution. It's all about government spending and borrowing. It's all about government dependence. We have more people on food stamps than ever before, and a record low participation rate in our workforce. Folks, I'm here to tell you that is not the American dream. That is not the American dream your parents taught you. That is not the American dream my parents taught me. The American dream is the circumstances of your birth don't determine your outcomes as they go. The American dream is if you're willing to work hard, get an education, you can do better than your parents. I want to share with you a little bit about my parents, my family's experience. I want to tell you about what we need to do to get the American dream back. You know, the reason I'm so passionate about this is my parents, they have lived the American dream. My dad's 1 of 9. Grew up in a house without electricity, without running water. Was the first and the only one to get past the 5th grade in our family. Now I know because we heard those stories every single day growing up. But here's the amazing thing. Over 40, almost 45 years ago, the first time my parents got on a plane, they came halfway across the world to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. They had never visited before. They didn't even know anybody who had been to Baton Rouge and come back and tell them what it was like. My mom was pregnant with me. And they still left behind their parents, their families, and their friends. When you think about it, they were coming to an idea as much as they were coming to a specific place. They were coming to the idea of freedom and opportunity. They were coming to the idea of the American dream. They landed in Baton Rouge. My mom went to school at LSU. And my dad, he didn't know anybody, but he came here to work. So he started calling company after company at the Yellow Pages. He finally convinced the guy from the railroad company to hire him sight unseen. The guy told my dad, you could start Monday morning. I know we got some younger folks here, and I would tell them, but I'm about to tell you that. This is like one of the worst things you can say during a job interview. So don't do this when you're looking for a job. My dad tells his new boss, hasn't even started working yet. Tells his new boss, he goes, that's great, I'll start Monday. He said, but look, I don't have a car, I don't have a driver's license, so you're going to have to pick me up on the way to work Monday morning. I mean, who tells his new boss that? The guy was so taken by his enthusiasm to work, that's exactly what he did. Now, 6 months later, I was born. I was what you would politely call a pre-existing condition. My parents' insurance didn't cover me, but there was an Obamacare. I love what my dad did next. He went to that doctor. No government forms, no contracts, no paperwork. He simply went to that doctor, and he said, I'm going to send you a check every month so I pay this bill in full. He then shook the doctor's hand, and that's exactly what he did. That's just what people did back then. You know, when I was old enough to understand that, I'd ask my dad, I said, I can pay for a baby or later. I mean, skip a payment. They take the baby back? What do they do? He said, you were such a bad little baby, we would have skipped a payment. They would have taken you back. He said, don't worry, you're paid for. Nobody's coming to get you. The reason I tell you that, my parents, they came here to chase the American dream. They fought the American dream. They have lived the American dream. This election is about making sure that American dream is still there for us and for our children and our grandchildren. Now, since I've been talking about my parents, let me just say this. My parents, when they came to this country legally when they came to this country. And I want to talk about immigration for just a few minutes. You know, a smart immigration policy can make the country stronger. A dumb immigration policy can make the country weaker. Today, we have got a dumb immigration policy. How do we make it smart? Well, we start with this. It isn't complicated. We don't need a 1,000-page bill. We don't need amnesty. What we need to do is we need to secure our border once and for all. Now, we could get this done in 6 months. It wouldn't be perfect, but we could get this done in 6 months. But let's be honest. There are big business interests in Washington, D.C. that don't want to see the border secure. And they threaten Republicans. And they tell Republicans, if you're not for amnesty, if you're not for open borders, we won't support you. We will oppose you. But it's time to fire those people. Not only is it time to secure the border, it is time to put an end to the sanctuary city. Now, there's a movement in Congress to defund them, and that's fine, but we got to do more than that. I've got a partners in crime package that says this: the mayors, the city council. If you want to flout federal law, we're going to make you criminally responsible. We're going to charge you as accessories for the crimes committed by people who shouldn't be here in the first place. Here you go. Now, yesterday I was at the soapbox at the state fair talking about this. They had some protesters that literally came in their t-shirts, they were bussed in, and they had their signs. And look, I'm here to tell you, there are big business interests that don't want to hear this kind of talk. There are big business interests that want amnesty and that want open borders. And my message to them is twofold. One, the Republican Party is not the party of big government, but we must not also become the party of big business. And my message to those protesters is you can try to disrupt every speech you want. That's not going to stop us from standing up and saying we are a nation of laws. You don't need a 1,000-page bill. The only reason you have a 1,000-page bill is to stack it up at the border. I don't know about you, but they're not going to shut me up and they're not going to shut you up. And you know, the left, we've historically said in America that America is a great melting pot. And that has been a great source of strength for America. But the left has gotten so politically correct. They're now saying, well, we're not a melting pot, we're a salad bowl. They're saying that it is wrong to insist that people who want to come here should want to be American. That is somehow culturally arrogant and xenophobic. Folks, there are millions of people that want to live in America. It's common sense to say you should want to be American before we let you come. And it's also common sense to say that we're not going to let you use the same freedoms we give to you to undermine freedoms for other people. And it's also common sense to say we are a great melting pot. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of the hyphenated American. We're not African Americans or Asian Americans or rich or poor Americans. We're all Americans, united as one. And you know, I want to just say this simply. I know it's not politically correct, and I said this to the protesters yesterday. If folks want to come to our country, they should come legally. They should learn English. They should adopt our values. And when they get here, they should roll up their sleeves and get to work. Let's be honest. I know this is not politically correct, but it's the honest truth. Immigration without assimilation, that's not immigration. Immigration without assimilation, that's an invasion. And we must not let that happen. You want to see that in other countries? Look to Europe. Second and third generation immigrants that don't consider themselves part of that society. We must not let that happen. And you know, I want to spend my time to you talking today about, and you've heard me say this, why we've got to stand up for our conservative beliefs. I talked about immigration. I'm going to switch gears. I want to talk about another example, which is Obamacare. We have got to repeal every single word of Obamacare to restore freedom and sanity to our healthcare system. I want to ask you a couple of questions, just to make sure we're all the same approach. I'm going to ask a show of hands. The first question is, I want to ask, how many people agree with me that here in America we should not be creating a new entitlement program when we can't afford the entitlement programs we've already got? How many people agree with that statement? Does anybody disagree with that statement? You know, sometimes we get a couple of Democratic tractors. I guess they're not doing so. But here's the second question I've got. How many of you agree with me that the federal government should be raising our taxes to pay for universal, to subsidize folks, to pay for universal coverage by giving subsidies to every American? How many folks agree the federal government shouldn't be raising our taxes to pay for universal coverage to subsidize every American's health care? Should not. I'm sorry, should not. Every year we should not be doing that. How many of you think we should be doing that? Well, look, I've got good news and bad news. The good news is I've offered an alternative to Obamacare that does not create a new entitlement program, that does not have the government subsidize every American's health care to create universal coverage. That's the good news. The bad news is, up until now, I was the only candidate that offered an alternative to Obamacare. Now, Governor Walker offered his plan last week, and I'm glad that a second candidate has offered a plan. The bad news is he does create a new entitlement program. The bad news is he does have the government subsidizing every American's health care from cradle to death, from birth to grave. The bad news is that this plan, by one estimate, could cost $1 trillion. And he doesn't tell us how he's going to pay for it. Now look, I'm not here, let me stop picking on Scott. Let me say this. It is time for us as Republicans, as conservatives, to stop being bullied by the left. It is time for us to stand up for our own principles. Now, what do I mean by that? You may have heard Jeb Bush say we've got to be willing to lose the primary in order to win the general election. Folks, I disagree with that. Now let me translate that. What that really means is this. That is the establishment telling us to hide our conservative rules, to try to get the left and the media to like us. I'm here to tell you, if we do that again, we will lose. And we will deserve to lose. You know, the reality is conservative ideas aren't dead in America. They're simply dead in D.C. We've got a bunch of professional politicians who are scared to fight. They were actually happy that the Supreme Court ruled against us on Obamacare. They are scared to fight against creating a new entitlement program. They are scared to fight against universal coverage paid for by the government. They're scared to fight for more independence and less government dependence. We don't need to become a second liberal party. We don't need to become a cheaper version of the Democratic Party. When did we decide to stop fighting for our conservative principles? When did we throw in the towel? See, I didn't get that message. The reality is it is worth fighting for the American dream. We may have to fire a bunch of professional politicians in D.C. if that's what it takes to get our country back, to get our party back. You're going to hear a lot of politicians that'll get up here and tell you that we've got to cut government spending. You hear a lot of politicians that can give you a great speech. It's easy to give a speech with a lot of red meat. We've got a lot of great speakers running for president. Here's the problem. We've got a great speaker in the White House today. If great speeches are enough, we'd be doing great. We don't need a speaker, we need a doer. Now look, the reality is, I may not be the best speaker, I'm certainly not the best looking kid. I'm not the richest kid. I don't have a famous last name. My daddy wasn't president, I don't have a reality TV show. So I do it. I've got the backbone, I've got the bandwidth, I've got the experience to get this job done. The reason that's so important, our next commander-in-chief has got to be ready on the first day. The reality is our next commander-in-chief may be sitting across from a Putin or an Ayatollah. They better not need a teleprompter. They better not need talking points. They better not need staff to tell them what to do. We need somebody to get right and do this job. And so you'll hear from all kinds of Republicans who've got to cut spending. We got 9 current or former governors running for president right now on the Republican side. Exactly 1 has cut spending. Not 2, but 1. And you're looking at it right now. Nobody's cut more government spending anywhere, anytime. We're now a top 10 state for private sector job growth. We've got 8 credit unions. Now look, here's the choice of things. You either grow the government economy or the American economy. You can't do both. If we don't shrink the government economy, it's going to beat us all. Hillary Clinton made it very clear she wants to grow the government. And I'll tell you this, we're not going to elect somebody who's willing to do and say things you're not supposed to be able to do and say. We took the Senate last year. What has changed? They said they were going to get rid of Obamacare and amnesty. They didn't do that. And here's the reason. We've got a professional, permanent class of politicians. It is time to shove term limits down their throats and say we want part-time legislators that live under the same rules they pass for the rest of us. sacrifice. They never intended to become lobbyists or earn $6, $7 million. Oh, they loved Obamacare as long as they got to exempt themselves from Obamacare. The reality is this. The Founding Fathers intended that people leave their farms, their businesses, go and work for us, and then come back and live under those same rules and laws. 7 of the 10 fastest growing counties in this recent economy have actually been in the greater D.C. area. That's not real. That's not sustainable. Folks, I want to say something that's not politically correct. I don't mean to offend anybody, but the idea of America is slipping away right now. It is easy for too many of us as Americans to take this country for granted. But as a son of immigrants, maybe I can say this, because my parents never take this country for granted. Every single day they are grateful they are in the greatest country in the history of the world. Look, Hillary Clinton, President Obama, they want to turn the American dream into the European nightmare. Give Bernie Sanders credit, at least he's honest enough to call himself a socialist. The idea of America is slipping away. What do I mean by that? Think about what we have seen these last 7 years. Things you and I never thought we would see. $18 trillion of debt. Obamacare when we can't afford the entitlements we've got today. The EPA trying to regulate the water in your backyard. Planned Parenthood taking your tax dollars and dismembering babies and selling their organs across the country. We canceled their contract in Louisiana to make sure they're not getting any taxpayer dollars. They didn't like that. They wanted to come protest my house last week. I said, you got a right to be there, but we also have a right. I wanted to provide some entertainment while they came, so we set up an outdoor screen and show those videos again and again and again. So they can see the solidarity. Folks, we've got a commander-in-chief who won't even say the words radical Islamic terrorism. More than happy to criticize and apologize for America. More than happy to criticize medieval Christians and the Crusaders. We've got a commander-in-chief who makes war on trans fats and declares a truce with Iran, the great sponsor of terrorism. We've got a president who won't even stand with Israel. He lets our friends down, treats them like dirt, lets our enemies walk all over us. Think about the things we have seen these last 7 years. We've got a Supreme Court that thinks they're smarter than God and can redefine marriage. We've got a left that wants to take away our religious liberty rights. Wants to take God out of the public square. This goes on and on. We can't secure our border. The idea of America is slipping away. It's time for us to fight for our country. Yes. The idea of America has given more hope to people in this world. It's created more wealth. It has done more to fight for freedom and the defenseless than any other civilization in the history of the world. We cannot let the idea of America slip away. One of the things that we are also saying, before I close, I want to say this. We're seeing an assault on Christians physically overseas and on Christian values. And I'm ashamed. I'm trying to say I am a Christian. The reason I tell you that, and in church this morning I shared the fact that I wasn't born and raised Christian. It took 7 long years for me to convert and give my life to Christ. The reason I tell you that is I'm not going to be ashamed to stand up for our values. We've been the most pro-life state 6 years in a row. We have fought to get rid of Common Core, passing laws to get rid of it, taking Arnie Duncan to court. We have continued to fight for religious liberties and freedoms. I'm here to tell you what, I'm a Republican, I'm running for president, I want to be your next president. But we also need a spiritual revival in this country to help us with this. The idea of America is slipping away right from us. As long as I've got breath, as long as I've got ability, I'm going to give everything I've got to fight to keep America. For you, for me, for our family. I'm asking you to join us. It's not too late, but the hour is late. If you join with us, I believe we can rescue the idea of America. I'm asking you to believe again. I'm not just asking you to join a campaign, I'm asking you to join a cause. We don't have time. We can't wait till next week, next month, next year. We need you to sign up today. Join our movement together. We will rescue the idea of America. We will rescue the idea of the American dream with God's grace. We will make sure that America dominates this next century. God bless y'all. Thank y'all very, very much.
Stop it.
Thank you. I'd like to hear from y'all. I'd love to take y'all's questions.
Did it stop?
Yes, sir.
You mentioned